The cameras rolled. The world watched. Dignitaries bowed. It was meant to be the perfect royal showcase, an event steeped in grandeur and tradition. But beneath the polished smiles and ceremonial splendor, something stirred in the youngest Windsor. Prince Louis, barely restrained, would ignite a chain reaction no one in the palace saw coming, leaving guests stunned and royals scrambling to maintain control. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The golden carriages had just rolled in. The cathedral, packed with foreign dignitaries, nobility, and press, buzzed with ceremonial expectancy. Cameras clicked, commentators whispered reverently, and every polished tile, every trumpet blast seemed engineered to scream control. But within that performance, hidden behind carefully tailored suits and pastel dresses, was a 5-year-old boy with too much fire in his chest and too little room to breathe. Prince Louis had been prepped, briefed, coached to perfection, but a storm was building inside him, and the palace had no idea it was about to break. The trouble began early. A subtle eye roll here, an impatient shuffle there. At first, royal handlers chalked it up to childish nerves. But as the ceremony dragged, Louis's restlessness grew more visible. A sideways glance to Catherine signaled rising concern. Her lips tightened. Her hand gently reached for his, but he pulled away. Camilla, seated nearby, noticed. She whispered something to an aide. The tension, though quiet, was palpable. In an institution where silence is strategy and stillness is survival, every twitch becomes a warning. And Louis was twitching too much. Moments passed. The Archbishop's voice filled the space with ancient echoes, but Louis was unmoved. He fidgeted, slouched, mumbled under his breath. Then it happened, an audible protest. No one quite caught what he said, but the words were loud, enough to break the sacred rhythm of the event. Gasps flared like firecrackers, camera lenses zoomed, even seasoned royal watchers didn't know what to make of it. A child misbehaving? Perhaps, but within the royal family, nothing is ever simple. Every gesture has layers. And Louis's defiance wasn't just mischief. It was a rupture in the illusion of harmony. Catherine's expression shifted, more mother than princess now. She reached for him again, firmer this time, but his frustration had fully surfaced. He wriggled in his seat, swatted at his sleeve, and let out a frustrated groan. The event's choreographed perfection was shattered. Royal aides stepped in, shielding the moment from some cameras, but not all. A BBC microphone caught muffled chaos. A French outlet streamed the footage seconds later. Headlines drafted themselves. Prince Louis throws tantrum at historic event. And the monarchy, once again, was on the edge of an unexpected PR cliff. But the moment wasn't over. William, seated rigidly beside his family, clenched his jaw but didn't move. He couldn't not without making it worse. Behind him, Charles sat frozen. Behind Charles, aides scrambled silently. It was as though the entire royal machine had been caught in a glitch, and at its center was a boy, angry, embarrassed, unfiltered. But this wasn't just a tantrum. This was something else. A message, a symptom, a signal the palace had failed to interpret until now. As the choir resumed and the cameras panned away, the moment seemed to fade, but the damage had already been done. Behind the marble walls and ornate ceilings, shock turned to panic, and the question hung heavy in the air: had Prince Louis merely acted out, or had he unintentionally exposed a fracture too deep to mend? But what looked like an isolated childhood outburst would soon reveal itself as a symbolic unraveling, one that traced deep into royal fractures, long, hidden from view. The palace has its rules, some spoken, most not. And children? They're expected to obey them flawlessly. But inside Kensington's pristine walls, Louis had been showing signs of resistance, not just to discipline, but to the monarchy itself. Behind the grandeur, the sparkling portraits, and the controlled public appearances lies a world of quiet suffocation for royal children. Expectations aren't just high, they're relentless. From the moment they take their first steps, they are groomed for perfection. Smiles must be timed, words must be measured, emotions must be buried. For Prince Louis, the youngest of the Cambridge children, this framework became a cage too tight to contain his spirit. Palace aides, once charmed by his boldness, began to whisper about his uncontainable fire. Behind closed doors, he wasn't the dutiful prince in training. He was a tempest, one that Catherine and William tried to shield but could never fully silence. Insiders speak of escalating tantrums and unexplained outbursts. Former nannies, under condition of anonymity, painted a picture of a child emotionally raw, craving freedom in a house that traded liberty for legacy. Where others saw defiance, they saw desperation. And while most children are allowed to stumble through their growth, Louis was expected to do so with royal precision. His missteps weren't childhood hiccups, they were considered threats to an image curated over centuries. The royal brand didn't accommodate imperfection. It crushed it. Catherine, known for her unwavering poise, faced an internal war that few could comprehend. She was a mother first, but also the future queen, and the pressure to mold Louis into something he resisted was slowly pulling her apart. Sources close to the couple describe late-night arguments, whispers about boarding schools, and tearful decisions made behind locked doors. Catherine pleaded for compassion, for understanding, but tradition offered the little room for empathy. William, meanwhile, paced the edge of panic. Every time Louis acted out, the looming threat of scandal grew, and William, still haunted by the public dissection of his own childhood, could feel the vultures circling again. The couple stood at a crossroads between two parenting ideologies: the firm, restrained upbringing that had been drilled into William, and the modern, emotionally attuned approach Catherine desperately believed in. But the institution wanted consistency, not innovation. They didn't want Catherine's instincts, they wanted results. The pressure to ensure Louis conformed was mounting, and then came the moment that changed everything. Weeks before the public tantrum, Louis had reportedly refused to attend a scheduled royal engagement, not due to illness, not due to fear. He had simply said no. That one word sparked chaos behind the scenes. Senior aides were dispatched, schedules were adjusted. The Queen was notified, and for the first time, the monarchy tasted what it feared most: unpredictability from within. In public, the family smiled, but privately, trust was fraying. Each day brought new concerns. How long could they hide the cracks? How much longer could they maintain the illusion? Louis was no longer just a spirited boy, he was a liability in the making. A future they couldn't predict, a symbol of rebellion wrapped in royal blue. And while the family scrambled to contain the storm, they failed to notice the next one brewing. Because not all forces threatening the crown wore tiaras or royal crests. Some wielded cameras, some typed headlines, and some had been waiting for this very moment. And as the family tried to suppress what they couldn't control, a more dangerous force stirred from within the media. Within hours, headlines exploded. Royal rage. Tantrum at the throne. The monarchy had faced its share of PR disasters, but never one sparked by a child. The press tore into the moment like vultures. But was it all just bad behavior, or a glimpse into a much darker royal divide? By nightfall, the footage had gone viral. Social media dissected every angle. A slow-motion clip of Louis's furrowed brow looped endlessly. TikTok turned the tantrum into a meme. Twitter raged with debates. Tabloids spun their narratives with surgical precision. Some called it a royal embarrassment. Others saw it as a cry for help. The palace, known for silence in the face of scandal, issued no comment. But silence only deepened the frenzy. Every unspoken word became fuel. Every missing detail an invitation for speculation. The public didn't know what to believe. Was Louis merely a misbehaving child? Or had the royal family failed him entirely? One side praised his spirit, hailing him as a free soul trapped in an archaic institution. The other saw danger in his defiance, accusing the Cambridges of losing control. Editorials questioned Catherine's parenting. Commentators dissected William's cold expression. But the most damning questions weren't about Louis, they were about the system itself. What kind of life was this for a child? And if he couldn't handle it now, what storm awaited him in adulthood? Then came the whispers. Had the footage been leaked deliberately? And if so, by whom? All eyes turned inward. Within the palace, trust eroded like sand in the tide. Some speculated that it was a disgruntled aide, others believed it was an act of sabotage from within the family. Aimed not at Louis, but at Catherine. Theories spread that she had made enemies in high places, that her rising influence had unsettled the balance of power. One theory claimed that a senior member of the household had had enough of her polished image and sought to tear it down one headline at a time. As the world devoured the drama, conspiracy threads grew darker. Anonymous sources claimed Louis had been warned before the event that something had been said to him, intentionally or not, that pushed him over the edge. What that was remained a mystery. But the idea took root that this wasn't a tantrum, but a trigger. A sign that the boy had carried more weight than anyone had realized. And if that were true, then the blame no longer lay at his feet. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Meghan and Harry's circle seized the moment with surgical subtlety. Without naming names, they made pointed remarks. A close associate tweeted, "Children aren't chess pieces." Meghan, during an interview, vaguely referenced the pressures of royal life on young minds, enough to make headlines, but vague enough to deny intent. It was a masterstroke. Every insinuation reignited tensions. Every word reminded the world of the couple's own escape from the institution and their long-standing warnings about its inner toxicity. In private, the damage was worse. A senior royal, known for measured words, allegedly broke decorum and snapped, "This family can no longer control its own." That quote, never confirmed, but widely believed, captured the growing dread. For all the pageantry and polish, the truth was now undeniable. The royal family was no longer in command of its own narrative. And Louis's outburst had become the symbol of something far larger than himself. But while the world mocked and speculated, a quieter panic unfolded in the Queen's private chambers. The Queen's patience had limits, and Louis had crossed them. In a closed-door crisis meeting, Her Majesty made it clear, the House of Windsor must present strength or risk falling apart, and if that meant disciplining one of its own, so be it. The atmosphere inside Buckingham that evening was grim, electrified by the weight of unspoken truths. The tantrum had rattled more than reputations, it had shaken foundations. For decades, the monarchy had survived scandal after scandal by one principle alone, unity above all. But now, unity had cracked, and at the fault line stood a 5-year-old prince. The Queen, known for her iron resolve, summoned her inner circle. Her face unreadable, her words sharpened by the burden of legacy, she issued a simple decree. The crown will not be mocked, not by the press, not by the public, and certainly not by one of its youngest. What followed was not a discussion, it was a royal reckoning. Tensions flared, voices rose. Some argued that Louis was a child and should be treated as such. Others warned that allowing this behavior to go unchecked would invite further rebellion. One insider described the room as pure warfare, in whispers. The divide was generational, ideological, and personal. On one side, the modernists, Catherine and a few key allies who believed in reform, compassion, and privacy. On the other, the traditionalists rooted in protocol and power, who feared that any display of weakness would invite chaos. Rumors swirled like wildfire. The Queen had allegedly threatened to remove Louis from all future public events indefinitely, an exile in all but name. It was the ultimate warning, not just to Louis, but to his parents. If the heir could not keep his house in order, the crown would. William and Catherine, blindsided by the severity of the reaction, pleaded behind closed doors. Catherine was said to have cried during the conversation, her voice reportedly trembling as she begged for understanding. William, ever the restrained statesman, was colder but no less desperate. He reminded the Queen of the pressures their children endured, of the glare they had never chosen. But the Queen had heard such arguments before. This time, she wasn't listening. And then came the shock that shifted the tone entirely. Prince Charles, long seen as the emotional one softened by age and scandal, sided against his son. He supported the Queen's line, urging strict response over sentimentality. His reasoning stunned everyone. The crown, he said, was already fragile. It could not afford another weak link. For William, it was a betrayal from the one person he thought might understand. For Catherine, it was the moment she realized they were more alone than ever. Then came the leak. A confidential palace memo, accidentally or perhaps intentionally shared with a tabloid, referenced Protocol 9. An internal policy, rarely spoken aloud, supposedly invoked when a royal family member, regardless of age, posed a reputational risk to the monarchy's continuity. The memo didn't name Louis. It didn't have to. The world connected the dots. The story exploded again, only this time with a darker, more clinical twist. The monarchy had a blueprint for disciplining its own blood, but as the Queen wielded power from above, another royal took matters into her own hands, one with more to lose than anyone else. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had worn her smile like armour, but behind the grace was a mother on the edge, torn between royal obedience and a child's cry for freedom. And now, with Louis at the centre of a national spectacle, she had to choose. Duty or defiance. From the beginning, Catherine had known this life would ask more of her than she could prepare for. The gowns, the titles, the adoration, none of it shielded her from the dread she carried in silence. What would the cost be for her children? Long before the crown touched her head, she feared its weight on theirs. In private moments, she would confide in her sister that she worried not about the public, but the palace. It was one thing to raise a family. It was another to raise one under scrutiny, under protocol, under a system that demanded perfection but gave no mercy in return. Louis had always been different, more willful, more sensitive, less tolerant of expectations. And as he grew, so did her unease. The fallout from the tantrum changed everything. Catherine had trained herself to endure whispers, to absorb criticism with silence. But now it was different. Now it was her child. And while the world debated headlines, she battled guilt in isolation. Behind palace walls, she was both protector and prisoner. The glances from courtiers, the carefully phrased suggestions from aides, it was all code. Code for control. Code for compliance. Louis's behaviour wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. And Catherine, once their golden figure of stability, had become a liability by association. Every public appearance became a trial, every gesture dissected, every silence misread. Then came the confrontation with William, explosive, painful, and long overdue. He urged discipline. She demanded compassion. He feared scandal. She feared damage. Their voices clashed in the safety of their private quarters, but the echoes reached far. It wasn't just about parenting, it was about the very soul of their marriage, built on love but strained by obligation. Catherine saw a boy fighting for breath. William saw a prince defying order. They weren't just disagreeing. They were drifting. The Queen summoned her. Catherine went alone. The meeting was short, sharp, and unforgettable. She defended Louis, her voice firm but trembling. She spoke not as a duchess, not as a princess, but as a mother. And the Queen, unmoved, reminded her what was at stake. The crown, the family, the legacy. Catherine left that room knowing she had failed not because she was wrong, but because no one truly listened. Days later, a handwritten letter surfaced in the hands of a tabloid. Its origin unconfirmed, its message undeniable. In it, Catherine described feeling powerless in the palace, mourning the gap between motherhood and monarchy, and confessing a growing fear that she was failing the one who needs me most. Behind the scenes, whispers intensified. A senior staff member allegedly overheard her on a phone call, saying she was considering stepping away for the children. It was a line that shook the inner circle. The future Queen of England contemplating retreat. Not for power, not for scandal, but for survival. Her emotional reserve, once her greatest weapon, was fading. Catherine was no longer holding back tears, she was holding back a breaking point. But Catherine wasn't the only one struggling, because someone else saw Louis's rebellion not as a crisis, but as an opportunity. In Montecito, the news of Louis's meltdown was met not with shock, but strategy. Meghan, long accused of rocking the royal boat, saw the chaos as confirmation, and in that confirmation, she saw her next move. Behind the scenes, the Sussex household buzzed with an almost eerie calm. To the public, it was just another royal debacle, but to Meghan, it was vindication. Whispers from those close to her painted the moment as deeply personal. "Now they understand," she allegedly told a friend. "Now they see what we were trying to protect our children from." It wasn't a dig, it was a declaration. For years, Meghan had warned of the institution's suffocating expectations, its polished cruelty wrapped in tradition. Now, with Louis unraveling under that very pressure, her narrative had been given a brutal, undeniable validation, and she was prepared to use it. Soon after the tantrum went viral, Meghan released a new podcast episode. Though names were never mentioned, the subtext was unmistakable. She spoke about children growing up under performance, about young minds absorbing pressure like poison, and the necessity of protecting innocence in the face of inherited duty. The internet lit up, royal commentators seethed. But the message had landed, and it struck chords far beyond the walls of Windsor. Meghan hadn't just inserted herself into the conversation. She had reframed it. What the palace saw as a scandal, she subtly recast as a symptom, not of rebellion, but of a broken system too proud to admit its own rot. Harry's response was less calculated, more conflicted. Sources say he was deeply affected by the footage, torn between compassion for his nephew and bitterness toward the family that had refused to protect him and his own children. Privately, he voiced concern. Publicly, he remained silent. But his absence from comment only fueled the intrigue. Meghan, on the other hand, moved with surgical precision. Her team discreetly reached out to key media contacts, offering clarity and context to those willing to listen. Nothing explicit. No accusations. Just subtle nudges, reminders of past statements, replays of overlooked interviews, select quotes dropped into inboxes at just the right moment. It was a masterclass in media manipulation, wrapped in plausible deniability. Then came the post. A cryptic message from a wellness brand closely tied to the Sussexes. Just 4 words. Protect their little hearts. No caption, no context. But with millions watching, none was needed. The message went viral. Screenshots flooded Twitter. Debate reignited. Was it a dig at the firm? A message to Catherine? A public pledge of solidarity with Louis? No one could say for sure, but everyone was talking. And Meghan, without stepping foot on British soil, had managed to dominate the royal narrative yet again. Theories erupted across social media and morning panels. Was Meghan carving out a new role for herself, not as rebel, but as redeemer? Some said she was positioning herself as the voice of a kinder, freer royal vision, a protector of the next generation. Others accused her of exploiting a child's pain, but the truth, as always, was layered. Meghan didn't need to pick a side. She simply needed to let the palace keep crumbling under its own weight while she stood outside the gates, watching, waiting. As battle lines reformed and loyalties were questioned, another twist emerged, one buried in the past, waiting to explode. Every tantrum has a root, and for Louis, whispers began to emerge of something deeper, something kept from the public, and even some family. A hidden trauma, an overlooked diagnosis, or worse, a betrayal that scarred a child before the world ever saw it. The palace had always been good at keeping secrets, especially those that threatened the image of royal perfection. But within the marble walls, silence often hides the screams that never reach the public ear. And when Louis's name began trending for all the wrong reasons, attention quietly turned inward to the past. There were murmurs of a medical condition, one not severe enough to warrant public concern, yet significant enough to demand discreet intervention. Sources hinted at early signs of a neurological sensitivity, a condition some said had been treated in secret under the guise of routine checkups. But the real shock wasn't the condition itself, it was how it had been handled. Not with openness, not with support, but with suppression. Because in the royal family, vulnerability isn't met with empathy. It's met with protocol. Behind the curtain, a conflict had brewed for years between royal physicians and William. While Catherine reportedly pushed for specialized care, William allegedly insisted on discretion. One insider described it as a philosophical war over parenting in a palace built on denial. The tension reached a breaking point after what palace aides cryptically referred to as the nursery incident. No details were ever confirmed, but fragments of the story slipped through. A sudden, unexplained episode. A panicked call. A moment that left even seasoned staff shaken. The event, buried under layers of confidentiality, marked a turning point in how Louis was managed and how his emotional responses were interpreted. Staff diary entries later leaked to a tabloid painted a troubling picture. "He doesn't look us in the eyes," one wrote. "He flinches at sudden sounds." Another noted, "He clings to his mother, but recoils from the rest of us. It's like he doesn't trust anyone." These weren't mere anecdotes, they were warnings. And they suggested a boy not just reacting to pressure, but carrying the weight of something no child should bear alone. As public debates focused on parenting styles and royal rigidity, a darker truth flickered beneath the surface. Louis wasn't acting out. He was crying out. Parallels were drawn between Louis's outbursts and the long-silenced accounts of Prince Charles's own childhood torment. Back then, emotional distress was treated as weakness. Now, history seemed to be repeating itself not through cruelty, but through silence. Silence that isolated. Silence that wounded. And it was Catherine who bore that silence most heavily. In a charity speech from 2023, she spoke of hidden griefs that live in the shadows of families, her voice trembling just slightly on those words. At the time, few noticed. Now, in hindsight, it played like a veiled confession, a mother navigating pain that protocol forbade her to speak aloud. And just as the shadows of the past began to gain form, the present crumbled even further under the weight of betrayal from within. When Prince William discovered who had leaked the footage of Louis's tantrum, he didn't speak, he roared. And what followed was a confrontation so intense, aides reportedly feared it would tear the family apart permanently. For days, speculation had spiraled. The palace initiated a discreet but urgent internal investigation, desperate to plug the breach before another scandal detonated. At first, theories ranged from disgruntled media staff to rogue photographers, but when the truth landed, it sent shockwaves through Kensington. The leak hadn't come from an outsider. It had come from inside the very walls they trusted. A senior staff member, once considered part of William's innermost circle, had allegedly passed the footage to a foreign outlet motivated not by money, but by frustration. Frustration with how the family was handling Louis. Frustration, perhaps, with William himself. The revelation shattered whatever composure William had managed to maintain. According to palace sources, his fury was volcanic. Doors were slammed, voices were raised. At least one aide fled the room in tears. It was unlike anything before, a witness said. We'd seen him angry, but never like this. This was betrayal, raw and personal. Within hours, the staff member in question was dismissed without ceremony. The royal household attempted damage control, but the fracture ran deeper than a contract terminated. Trust had been broken, and William's grip on his own team now appeared shakier than ever. The leak also reopened old wounds between William and his father. Charles had been slow to act, hesitant to launch an inquiry so soon after the scandal broke. That hesitation, in William's eyes, bordered on negligence. The two clashed in a heated phone call, with William accusing his father of protecting the institution at the expense of his family. Charles, ever the strategist, responded with cool logic, but William, already spiraling from the betrayal, saw it as yet another failure of paternal support, a reminder of wounds from his own childhood that had never fully healed. Back at home, tension boiled over. Catherine, still emotionally raw from her confrontation with the Queen and the ongoing speculation around Louis, urged caution. She wanted to retreat from the spotlight, protect what was left of their son's privacy. But William, still burning from humiliation, wanted to fight back. Their disagreement, described by insiders as deeply emotional, turned into an argument that reportedly left both shaken. Not because of raised voices, but because of what wasn't said. For the first time, there were whispers of distance not just between them and the monarchy, but between them as husband and wife. In the days that followed, William withdrew. He cancelled public appearances, declined briefings, ignored calls. Aides whispered that he was seriously considering stepping back from public life temporarily. At least, it was a thought he'd never dared entertain before. But now, the cost of royal life felt heavier than ever. The weight of leadership, the fear of losing control, and the pain of seeing his own child at the center of a media storm had pushed him to the edge of something irreversible. But amidst fury, division, and chaos, a final act emerged, one that would change the monarchy's legacy forever. Weeks passed, the world waited. And then, Louis returned. At a quiet, carefully staged appearance, the youngest royal stepped forward. But was this redemption? Or the beginning of something far more unpredictable? The tension leading up to the event was unlike anything the monarchy had faced in years. Every outlet, every commentator, every royal watcher waited breathlessly for the moment Louis would be seen again. Would he smile? Would he rebel? Would he even show at all? The palace, battered and bloodied by weeks of chaos, opted for a controlled re-entry. No grand procession, no headlines heralding his presence, just a quiet charity visit, scheduled at the last possible minute, designed to appear routine, unremarkable. But nothing about it felt unremarkable, because everyone knew what was truly at stake wasn't just a child's reputation, it was the crown's grip on the future. Louis appeared, holding Catherine's hand tightly. Her expression was firm, composed, maternal. She guided him forward with grace, but it was impossible to ignore the space between them and William, who remained a step behind, not absent, but distant, deliberate. It was a detail picked up immediately by the press, feeding into an already growing narrative of division at the highest level. But it was Louis who held the world's gaze. His face unreadable, his walk stiff but determined. Gone was the unruly boy who once disrupted a state event at the Tantrum heard around the globe. In his place stood a child carved into silence, obedient, polished, but somehow hollow. And that hollowness raised more questions than it answered. Some interpreted the appearance as a triumph of royal discipline, proof that the firm had weathered the storm and emerged with control intact. Others saw it as something far more troubling, a symbolic silencing. A child forced back into a role he never wanted, paraded to appease a global hunger for normalcy. Headlines split down the middle. Louis returns, a new chapter for the Windsors. Read one. Royal reset or royal suppression? Asked another. The ambiguity was precisely what the palace wanted. But in truth, no one really knew what they were seeing, redemption or repression, recovery or retreat. One anonymous senior royal, when asked off the record about the moment, offered a single chilling line. The future is no longer in our hands. It was said quietly, perhaps not meant to, reach the public. But it did. And it landed like a prophecy. Because behind the forced smiles and muted celebration, the truth lingered. Something had shifted. Irreversibly, the royal family may have staged a return, but the cost of that performance could not be undone. As the monarchy clings to its fading illusions of control, one truth remains. The crown is heavier than ever, and the next heir to wear it may not obey the rules at all. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.